domestic terrorism suspect. It put not only the first family of Pennsylvania, the firemen of the Harrisburg Bureau of Fire, but every Pennsylvanian on watch and in awe of how quickly the scope of that fire escalated, and that we could have a fire of such substance in our historic governor's mansion. We were quickly on the scene and met with the Pennsylvania State Police, part of the protection detail. And the complex itself has a lot of challenges to it. It is a very large complex, and it is very secure, right? So we can't just drive fire trucks to the front of the thing like we normally can do if we're going to a fire here in the 600 block of Dolphin Street. So it posed some challenges. Number one, finding where the fire was to start, and then additionally being able to gain entry. So we had to cut some gates, and we're going to be releasing on the city website probably later today a really brief video from Wagon 3 that's behind me that shows some of those initial actions of the work that had to be done before we even got to the fire, right? So they quickly identified we had to cut some gates. They were able to make those cuts in the gates to get those hose lines stretched back to where the building was on fire. And we had a very significant fire burning. Everybody was down there in the ballroom and the reception area of the building. Unfortunately, we did have to force entry, so it wasn't just as easy as walking up to the building, opening the door, and getting there. So we did have more work that we had to do to get inside that building. Once we got inside the building and started getting it opened up, we were able to quickly contain that fire from spreading. When we look at the fire grew fairly quickly because it was accelerated by those Molotov cocktails that were used in the firebombing. It was a very surreal scene when I got there, about 15 minutes into it, seeing fire coming from the governor's mansion. When I first went in to brief the scene before the fire was even out, it became very apparent that this was not an ordinary fire. Number one, not because it was just in the governor's mansion, but because of the circumstances that I saw inside surrounding the fire. So I immediately reached out to Pennsylvania State Police to bring their arson investigation team in, and we started to preserve that scene while also, again, needing to put out the fire, but we needed to preserve that scene and that evidence so that case could move forward with quality evidence that wasn't destroyed in the firefight. And that's often a challenge dealing with a building that's on fire, preserving that evidence that's been left behind by the perpetrators. And so we were quickly able, within about a half hour, got control of it. We chased a couple of hot spots in the building, and from that point on, we knew it was. I was briefed on the video of the actual perpetrator in the building, and so at that point we kind of pulled all of our folks out. A couple things on fire growth and fire dynamics, the way it grew. Luckily for the governor and his family, there were doors closed between that main portion of the ballroom and the hallway that leads to the main and master staircase going to the second floor. It would have been a totally different fire and a totally different outcome, most likely, had that door not been closed. I want to talk a little bit about the personal aspect of it as well, because fire affects Americans on a daily basis. Here in Pennsylvania, we kill about as many Pennsylvanians as any other state in the nation. Our fire death rate is significant in Pennsylvania, and so we deal with this on a near daily basis. There is a personal touch, and let's face it, we have a homeless encampment in South Harrisburg where I had a fatality earlier this year. Those folks, the whole way up through the governor of Pennsylvania that I'm responsible for protecting, the members of the Harrisburg Bureau of Fire do such a wonderful job of protecting. We all have one thing in common, and that's we're humans. And there's a human element to fire and the way it affects us, and that was very evident in Governor Shapiro the other night. I won't get into the personal conversations that he and I had with his family, but I can tell you that he was personally affected in a very positive way, though negative at the time, on the effects of fire and that fire has on human beings. And I believe when we look at everything, when we look at the fires that we go to here in Harrisburg, when we look at the poverty that we deal with here in Harrisburg, and we look at the circumstances we had to deal with. Again, the least of these being in the homeless encampments, to being responsible for protecting the infrastructure that runs and gives the heart and soul to the elected officials of Pennsylvania, all here in one 11.1 square mile city. It was a very a touching moment and an understanding moment for him that fire is a personal thing. It's not something that happens to somebody else. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, you can imagine what that looks like. I see it on a near weekly basis. This time it happened to be with the head of our government here in Pennsylvania. And I'm hopeful that that interaction that he and I had with his family present will help to give more vigor to the changes that need to happen in the Pennsylvania Fire Service and the support that the Pennsylvania Fire Service needs from state government, not just here in Harrisburg, but across the Commonwealth. And one of the biggest things that I'm certain will come from this is the governor's mansion through the remodel will hopefully have a fully functional and operating fire sprinkler system installed within it. And that is something we need to push for more throughout Pennsylvania, and I hope that it starts right down here on 2nd Street with the governor's mansion as we work through the remodel of that historic building here in Harrisburg. So with that, I think that is the end of everything that I have to add from the fire side of things. I will entertain questions. We'll start from my left and we'll go around.
Thank you. There was no fire suppression in the governor's mansion?
No fire suppression system. There was a fire alarm system, but not an active fire suppression system, meaning fire sprinklers that would have put the fire out before it spread.
And you talked about this, but maybe in the same order. When you arrive on scene, you've dealt with fires at any number of structures, but you see flames coming out of the governor's mansion. How did that affect your response and your impression?
You know, for us, it's a surreal feeling. I'm still really dealing with it internally. We deal in, just right across the street here, we had a significant fire that displaced a beautiful family, right? And knowing, though, that when we put our right hands up here in Harrisburg, every firefighter here is trained and ready to respond to, again, the least of these, but also that we have the state government that we're also responsible for. And that is a large responsibility. That entails a lot of training and behind-the-scenes things that the general public doesn't get to see, so that we have and are able to assist the Commonwealth with maintaining continuity of government operations.
Were the alarms going off?
They were. Yes, they were. Yes, they were activated. Thankfully.
Can you talk about when you were cutting the gates? Is there
Sure.
any indication of exactly how Balmer was able to get through those gates, jumped over, went under? How did that work out?
Yeah, so from the criminal side of it, I've seen the video. So he jumped over the gate, not the gate that we forced and forced entry into. So we cut a very different gate on the 2nd Street side of the building. Again, and we'll release some video of that later today.
And they were talking about how it was all within a matter of minutes that he was able to get in, actually get inside the home, do the cocktail, and then get out. I mean, how is it that there was no security around, or no one was able to stop him at any time?
That is a very good question for Pennsylvania State Police and the governor's detail. I will not comment on anything dealing with criminal investigation, other than it is 100%, and I'm not going to mention the guy's name because I don't want his name national in any kind of a positive light, seen as a hero, but he is a domestic terrorist, and I hope that he spends a lot of time behind jail for the heinous acts that he performed here in our capital city that put not only the first family, but my firefighters at risk.
Talk a little bit more about that you're using the term domestic terrorism, and that it's not just the person without your firefighters.
Right. This fire was meant to get that satisfaction of I was able to displace the governor. I was able to attack the governor, right? This was a personal attack on the governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We got to put politics aside and understand that, again, at the end of the day, what I said, the governor was human at 2 o'clock on Sunday morning, just like every one of us is human, and that's that bond that we have. And when we attack each other, we get absolutely nowhere. There's a time and place to voice those frustrations. We have beautiful Capitol down there that you can pick it at, that you can storm whenever you want with your picket signs and your anger. but it's got to stop before you get to the point where you want to firebomb an elected official or anybody for that matter. At the end of the day, we're all humans, and that should be the connecting bond for peace and unity here in Pennsylvania.
Yesterday when we spoke, you mentioned that you had the buzzsaw cut into the property and that you had to find the spot where the fire was located. How long did it take for you to start putting out the fire once arriving on property?
Look, reviewing the video, there was probably a 3 to 5 minute delay. Again, we had to, we're given one address for a very large complex that spans an entire city block, essentially. And, it spans from McClay to Geiger Street and front to 2nd. So the Pennsylvania State Police troopers that were there were busy evacuating the governor, his family, and the extended family that were there. So they were not immediately available to point us in the right direction. And because of where the fire was, it wasn't immediately visible from the front of the building where we were at.
And in your entire career, have you ever seen anything like you saw on Sunday morning with that type of attack on the governor's mansion? And what type of impact did that have on you?
So we deal with arson. I've dealt with fire bombings, throughout my career here in Harrisburg. They do happen. They are unfortunate acts. Look, the Molotov cocktail is no different than a gun, right? When I got that Molotov cocktail in my hand, I know at the end of the day, I'm going to create damage, destruction, and probably going through the terrorist's mind was, I want to kill somebody, right? So it's no different than that gun when I'm holding somebody up to steal their money, right? I know what the outcome could potentially be. And I think that's the surreal part of it, that there can be that much hatred pent up in somebody that they're able to take out that anger in such a way. And it is a horrendous way, not only to attack somebody, but God forbid a fatality. Dying in a fire is just an absolute, I can get back to my time just several months ago with the homeless gentleman that died in the fire. The angst and just the terror as he was screaming when I first pulled in on scene before he died was just blood-curdling, right? And that's what these folks don't think of at the end of the day.
Chief, how many people were inside that mansion?
I won't comment on that because I believe that's part of PSP's release. I will tell you and can tell you factually, if you listen to the Dauphin County's dispatch, that we were told there could be as many as 25 people inside the mansion. That was our dispatch number. So I feel confident giving that to you as a potential number that was inside.
And when you guys got on scene, no one was awake. Everybody was.
They were already beginning the evacuation as we arrived on scene.
Okay, you had one over here. Let's go more.
It's a historic building. It is definitely going to be in the millions, and that's because of the historic nature of the building with the smoke damage that's inside to paintings and artifacts and things like that that are going to have to be professionally cleaned and taken care of.
What prompted the arson investigation? You said you were quick to call police. What did you see that prompted that?
30 years doing this, you quickly are able to start pointing things out. And when things don't look right inside of a building, there's a gut feeling, but there's also a definitive look at things on how fire grows and develops. And when the things that you see don't equal what should have happened in a fire, that's when those arson tentacles start to really pop up. I think if you see if they released a video, you'll see exactly what we're looking at. But as an example, inside the main ballroom, there's one single chair that is totally burned up with nothing else burned around it. And that was the site of one of those Molotov cocktails that was smashed onto the floor that ignited that chair. Outside of where the main body of fire was, and there was no connection to the two of those through through the fire growth that was in the other room.
So was there more than one Molotov cocktail?
Yes, there was. I can't comment on how many, but there was definitely more than one.
And so were there two separate fires?
So there was fire in two separate rooms that are attached, right? They're attached. There's a folding door between them, but that folding door was open because they had just had and celebrated Passover earlier that evening.
Was there anything about the setup in that room? We could see some tables with tablecloths, but was there anything about the setup from that dinner that would have made it more packed with stuff that was easier to burn?
Not really, no. And from a fire growth standpoint, the fuel package, as we call it in the investigation side of things, the fuel package really wasn't that great. There wasn't a lot of, while there was stuff there to burn, it wasn't a great fuel package that would have, really caused us any other concern in any other house, quite honestly.
How long did it take to put the fire out?
We were about 30 minutes till we had, where we felt confident it wasn't spreading anywhere else.
Can you talk about what was in that cocktail that made it just so dangerous?
No, I won't, because that'll come out in the investigation. But I believe that the PSP report that was put out yesterday was that he used gasoline from his lawnmower to fill those. So deduct what the PSP released yesterday.
Do you know how quickly the fire spread from
So if you listen to PSP yesterday, he said he was in the house about a minute. When he got out, he was quickly being overcome by the products of combustion. So he was in and out very quickly, and the fire spread just as quick.
Was the fire department alerted by the alert system in the mansion, or was there a call?
There was a call made from the mansion to Dauphin County Dispatch for the fire.
Who made that call? One of the family members?
I won't comment on that. That should come from PSP. I know I'm being a little cryptic. If this was a city incident, right, and I had my city investigators doing the investigation, I would tell you everything. But because of the nature of our relationship that we've built with PSP, I certainly don't want to sour that with any portion of the investigation from the law enforcement side that I know that I can't share as the fire chief, just out of respect.
What door did your crews have to go in? How did they physically get into the building?
So when we forced entry into that gate, the very first set of doors on the right-hand side, we went in both that set of doors. There's a second set of doors to the west of that, and there's a large set of doors on the western side of the room. We went into those as well. So those are the two doors that we forced open.
And you had to break in, they were locked, you couldn't...
Correct, yeah. Yep.
And could you ever take a fire truck through the gate? Could it fit?
Because of the way everything's laid out. Now that we can through the Front Street side, and that takes a lot because we have to essentially dismantle the gates and the fencing, right, to be able to get in there. So our plan was just long lines, and then if we needed to, we could come in the front as well to put ladder trucks up, and luckily we didn't need any of that. So.
Have you ever done a fire drill at the governor's mansion?
We haven't, no. We've never conducted a fire drill at the governor's mansion. I don't know if that's something that we'll discuss in the future.
Is there a plan for how you would handle a fire?
So, at the end of the day, it's a protected government facility that we're accustomed to dealing with here in Harrisburg, and every fire presents its own challenges, right? And our firemen are very good at overcoming those challenges, and it's exactly what they did the other night.
And you really got to cut the fence because you can't even put the hose over the fence because of the points, right? And you would never put a hose over?
Right, our guys got to get over the fence as well, so it's easier to go through it than over it, and risk all that going. We can climb it. That is one option, right? You put a ladder up one side, a ladder down the other side, but now we're taking a lot of time putting things in place and now having to climb up, and then, the instability of the ground, it was muddy out. It's just easier to cut things and let them replace it.
Chief, had the door not been closed from the main state dining room where they were celebrating Passover, could the fire have spread further and deeper inside the mansion, putting the governor and his family at risk?
If that door wasn't closed, the fire would have spread and would have definitely put the governor at even greater risk. And it would have rapidly spread down that hallway just based upon the furnishings. Again, looking at the fuel package, what that fuel package looks like in that hallway definitely would have spread rapidly down and up to the main staircase going to the second floor.
Chief, when you got to the scene, you mentioned that the person who entered the building made his way into the residence. Without talking about anything with that, were there any Molotov cocktails that you guys found that were used on the property that you guys took control of, or PSP did?
So we see all the evidence in a fire, and it is our job to preserve it, and that's what we did.
You talked about the suppression system or lack thereof. Is there a reason why there wasn't one? Is that not a requirement for the governor's mansion?
It was not a requirement. So the mansion was built in 1968. So there was actually very little building code requirements in 1968 when the building was built. And I think the frustrating thing for the fire service in Pennsylvania is the International Fire Code and the International Building Code requires and mandates the fire protection be installed in every new structure that is built. However, Pennsylvania has written that out of our code and only requires multifamily housing units to be sprinkled, and that was due to the lobbying effects of the building industry, and quite frankly, their tactics to prevent having to put that fire protection systems inside.
Chief, as the investigation continues, the Pennsylvania State Police investigation, are Harrisburg firefighters going to be involved in providing expertise on the fire specifically?
Not on the fire specifically. We will be, and in fact, just before I came out here, I was on the phone with the one investigator. We're working with video footage that we have from our fire trucks to better and further their investigation. And again, that's that cohesiveness that we have working with PSP, knowing what they need, and then making sure we provide that information.
Few questions. You said you were going to release the video footage?
We will put that on the city website,
Okay.
which is harrisburgpa.gov.
Exactly, harrisburgpa.gov.
And
Yep.
what time will that be?
We don't know that. We don't know exactly. Probably
Yeah. Later this afternoon. Yeah. Yep.
I have one more question. So just to clarify, you came after the state troopers were there, right? The fire department came after?
Right, so the state troopers are on scene on the compound all the time.
Okay.
They're
So
there 24 hours a day.
And they called the fire department? Or we
Correct,
don't know?
yes.
They were the ones who
They were the
called?
ones that made the 911 call.
Okay.
Alrighty, let's give him a break.
All right.
He did
All
well.
good?
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
And I promised, who did I promise that, Scott Young, no, I promised somebody I'd talk to you offline here.
Yes.
So, it's you guys.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good job.
Yep, you bet.
These trucks, are these the two trucks that
Yes,
responded?
these are two of the, all of our firemen are there, so.